Well, hello there. The Football Pod is back. It's season 2. The same old music, the same old presenter. We've still got our 7-time All-Ireland winner, Paddy Andrews. But as you all know, our good friend, the great Andy Moran, left us last week as he takes his first steps into inter-county management of Leitrim. But we told you we'd turn up. We told you we'd find a top-tier replacement. We've had a lot of work to do this week, Paddy. A lot of soul searching. We're driving around the country. But I think it's safe to say that we've delivered. We have replaced our Footballer of the Year with a younger, fresher model who's also a Footballer of the Year, who's actually won an All-Ireland medal. I'm very excited and absolutely delighted to let the Football Pod listeners know that All-Ireland winner, 2-time All-Star and 2014 Footballer of the Year, James O'Donoghue, is our new co-host for the 2022 season. James O'Donoghue, you're very welcome along.
Thank you very much. The king is dead. Long live the king.
This fella's got to be a handful for the year. I can feel it already.
Oh, yes. I think it's coming. You're very welcome, James. How's all them in Kerry?
Delighted. Very good. Very good. Optimistic now for the new season. So looking forward to it and getting stuck in something new. So, yeah, brilliant. Delighted.
I don't know whether it's the YouTuber ring light you've got, but that looks like a tasty tan you've got at the minute.
Yeah, I had to go to the Cayman Islands to get a tan because I knew the Dubs or Paddy would be on the beds. So I said I had to get something au natural, you know.
Both of you were in the Caribbean the last couple of weeks. We were speaking about Paddy last week. He got a little break after his wedding and his antics before Christmas. You got a lovely break, Paddy, didn't you? And was it San Lucia?
I did, yeah, down to the Caribbean. I didn't know my new co-host was only just a shot across on the next island beside me, but all the big dogs head down to the Caribbean in January, you know.
And first, can't beat a bit of January sun.
Yeah, the Dubs are used to the Caribbean in the winter sun. Is that where the Kerry boys used to go on their team holidays? Where did you go after 2014, James?
We did South Africa, we did Cape Town and Sun City in 2014. It was nice. And we did Thailand. We did Miami and we did Thailand. And we were actually in Phuket in 2019. And the Tyrone boys were there before us. They must have gone after a semi-final, maybe, yeah. And what? Apparently they wrecked the place. We were like
team holidays.
We were the biggest legends of all time over there.
Christ.
I think, or else maybe it was they were there the year before, but they were there before us anyway. And this crowd had an awful idea of footballers and Ireland, but obviously we kept it okay. But the boys were supposed to be holy show.
You redeemed it. That's funny because we mentioned a couple times last year, but I read Liam Hayes' book. There's my first Mead mention of the year, Paddy.
And it's only taking about 90 seconds. But
90 seconds. But the Mead boys and the Cork boys, every team used to go to Lanzarote back in the day. And that was the place they used to go for their team holidays. So the Mead boys and the Cork boys will be battering each other in September. And then come January, December, they'd all be on the same beaches together. And they wouldn't talk, they wouldn't mix. So that was the setup back then. You boys never came across each other on a team holiday, did you?
Never, no.
No,
I know Paddy.
Kilkenny were there. What?
Go on, Paddy. No, go on, sorry.
Well, Kilkenny we were in Thailand it's gas. Teams just go in the same places you have to here. We're not very imaginative when it comes to the holidays. They're all cool places, but we did a bit of a crossover with the Kilkenny hurlers in Thailand. I'm thinking 15 maybe. They were just coming to the end, which is probably for the best because that would have been a hectic couple of days. And we arrived over. We used to go. I remember the first couple that we won. We went before Christmas. We used to go in the end of November, start of December, because we'd be playing in a Burren Cup and stuff. And Jim was kind of keen for us to hit the ground running. And then, as we all got a little bit older, and we were kind of winning all Ireland back to back and stuff like that, we said, look, we'll go in January and come back a little bit later, which is nice. So. No, very funny. We were in South Africa as well one of the years. We were in Miami as well. So there must be just a GAA holiday brochure that's passed around year on year. I see Tyrone were obviously in the States as well last week. So it's a nice time to get away if you can get it.
Yeah,
it is. You just don't want to come back too late, because if you come back too late, especially this year with the season kicking off even the All-Ireland finals in July, like if you start too late, you're going to lose too much time. You're in trouble straight away. Like I see Tyrone are back fairly late this year. Like I think that they're probably going to be up against it from the start, you know. At least before, when the All-Ireland final was on the third weekend in September, you had an awful lot of time and big breaks between every game if you had to kind of change something. But this year, there doesn't seem to be any scope for messing around. So the boys, I think, are back a bit late. They've put themselves up against it.
That's funny you say that, Jimmy, because that was actually, you're right. We would have done a lot of our pre-season stuff in April and May. The National League finishes, we go back to our clubs for 3 or 4 weeks, and then like May would be our real heavy season to get a month's training done before the championship. Whereas that's not going to be the case for anyone this year. It's in a way, it's for players, it's great because I hated those training blocks. And this season it's going to be games. You've got nine or 10 weeks of the National League if you get through to the finals, starting obviously this weekend, which is class. I don't know about you, James, but I love the National League. I said it before. I think a lot of players do that every weekend they're playing games, traveling around the country, different atmospheres and things like that. And then you're kicking straight into the championship this year. Yes. So interesting. We touched on it last week with our ex-colleague, Andrew, on Tyrone coming back late, that exact point. And they were beaten in their first game in the McKenna Cup. They're up against Monaghan this weekend, who are obviously on a bit of a roll, winning the McKenna Cup at the weekend. So it'll be interesting to see how the All-Ireland champions are going over the first couple of weeks of the National League, because they're not going to have a lot of training done.
Yeah, and they've lost a few bodies, like, haven't they?
Oh yeah,
like Tiernan McCann is a big fella to lose. Like, you think,
unbelievable.
Going back the last couple of years, he's been one of the best wing backs probably in the country, and for him to just put the hand up and walk away, it rocks the squad. I think when a fella walks away, it rocks people when you see a fella walk away, and it's easy then for the second fella to go. Once one or two go, the third fella is not far away, you know. But it's always the first two that go are kind of the hard ones.
But if you take, he came on in that Ulster semi-final last year against Donegal, kicked 3 points. He was kind of in and out of the team, having been the main, like I say, a mainstay of that Tyrone team over the last kind of 7 or 8 years. What age is he, Tommy? You put it in the WhatsApp there.
He's 30. He's 30, Paddy. But
once you hit 30, you're finished.
But you two boys, there we go.
He only looks 25. He's all right.
Yeah, he's doing something with that hair. Is that a wig he's got or something? There's no way your hair is that jet black when you're 30. No chance.
I think we'll come back to the Tyrone boys a little later, lads. I think we'll have a look at some of the brilliant games that we've got coming up. The interesting thing about Tyrone and those lads walking away, Paddy, which we'll come to later, is how important depth was to your Dublin team over that amazing run that you had. And when you were looking at the Tyrone team this year in their panel, they got such value out of their bench. And you were thinking, next year, the likes of McShane, Canavan, Ronan O'Neill, Mark Bradley, Tiernan McCann, they all have a lot to prove. And if a team is going to try and defend their All-Ireland title, that's so important. Not even to mention the likes of Michael Cassidy or Pat McGeary. Massive losses. But we'll come back to that later.
Just on that point, not just Tyrone, we touched it all throughout the championship last year. Dublin's depth was questioned all of last year, across the board, right from the get-go. And look, it probably came back to haunt them in that All-Ireland semi-final. Mayo as well.
Yeah.
The loss of Killian O'Connor, everyone was waiting for, when is this going to really hurt them? And they got to the All-Ireland final against all the odds. But in that final, they were just short.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of said in advance, I thought they'd struggle to get the scores. And that's where they missed that depth. And the point we made last week, like I said, even about Tyrone, even a successful team, you need new faces. You need 2 or 3 new guys coming in. Even if you've won, it needs to be freshened up to keep guys on their toes. You can see how I've been in dressing rooms and it can get stale so quickly. You can be doing all the right things, but that energy, a new face, a new coach, anything like that, that's what I'm sure Tyrone would have been hoping over this start of the season. But that depth of squad, particularly as James has said, the way the games are going to come thick and fast. There's going to be injuries. There's going to be suspensions. There's going to be guys losing form. That depth is so important to get over the line when it comes to the knockout, your All-Ireland semi-finals and finals. So, look, there's loads. It's going to be very interesting to see how that season pans out for a lot of the top teams.
100%.
Do you know what I think is important as well? When you're getting a new body into the camp, like, fair enough, first of all, he has to be obviously a very good player, but if he can bring a personality with him from the start, like a bit of something, just something different, a bit of an edge, it lifts the camp. Whereas if a fella comes in, he's kind of shy and he doesn't really know where to put himself or whatever, it doesn't have the same impact. What you want is a fella to kind of turn a few things upside down. you know, and have a bit of crack. And
This sounds like you're speaking from experience, Jimmy.
Yeah.
No, I was quiet. I was very
Yeah,
quiet.
yeah.
I don't believe
go
that.
back and change it.
Well,
But I always think that's the case anyway.
we're about 10 minutes into episode 1 of season 2 of the Football Pod, and I think it's fair to say that we've buried the lead. James, this is the part of the podcast every week where I remind people that you can hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, that you can download the OTP Sports app and you can get the podcast first every Tuesday there, and you can get it everywhere else on Wednesday. And if you like to watch the show, you can watch it on YouTube on a Thursday. For this week and this week alone, we're releasing the podcast on all platforms on Tuesday because we've got a bit of a big story to get stuck into next. James, there's a reason that you've had a bit of free time to get stuck into the Football Pod this year. You stepped away from Kerry last summer. I didn't know it was the end back then. So we're going to take a quick break. And Paddy, we're going to come back and we're going to chat to James about his future with Kerry. All right. You're welcome back to episode 1 of season 2 of the Football Pod. Paddy Andrews is with me and James O'Donoghue is with me. James, talk to us.
Yeah.
Is it over?
Oh, it's all over. It's all over, bar the shouting. Yeah. Last year, I suppose, I was kind of fighting an uphill battle, and realistically, I stepped away from the panel just before the going got very serious, and because I wasn't really contributing, you know. And realistically, I told them at that stage that I was retiring, but obviously, because it was the start of the season and Kerry were going so well, we didn't want to put out a statement going, Jesus, this fella's after retiring, and you know, throw all the good vibes out of the camp. So we just kept it under wraps, and obviously we thought that Kerry would go on and win the All Ireland, but it wasn't to be. But so at that stage, I had decided to step away from intercounty, you know, and retire, but just didn't get around to actually making an announcement on it. I was trying to do a silent stepping away then after that, you know.
You're not, but you're not the only one.
Yeah. I think it's the way forward from now on, I think. But no, it's a painful one, you know. It's definitely something that is going to be hard, but it was definitely the right thing.
There was definitely a feeling there back in July, James, when you stepped away, because I think we've all felt in the last 2 years that you've had such a tough time with injuries that we haven't seen you really like for about 2 years. And I think a lot of people felt, okay, mature decision, stepping back from the panel middle of the year, get the body right, and we'd see you again because you're still a young man. You're 31. Mm-hmm. I'm right in saying you're 31. I haven't put a year on you there.
29. 31. Yeah, I'm 31. But yeah, I suppose there was that in the back of my head. But that would have been fine if I'd had a good couple of years maybe coming into it. But literally, I haven't played well in a good long spell, and it comes to a stage then where you're, even if you do right, you go away and you might get injured and come back and make the panel or make a team. Like, you're costing maybe a bit of potential coming through in your place. You know, if you're not 100%, you're stopping someone else from coming through and maybe making their mark. So, like, I had that bit of guilt in my head as well, that I was thinking, like, every time I got injured and came back, I seemed to kind of make the panel or make the team. But, you know, there was a bit chipping away at me going, you can't keep doing this. Like, you have to either get right or get out. And I hadn't put together matches in a row in so long that I was like, geez, I can't even remember the last run of football I've had. So when I made that decision, all I wanted to do was go back to the Legion, play games, you know, play well, start enjoying the game. I know that sounds so like cliche, but it's such a thing when you're injured for so long that you kind of forget the crack of it, and you want to feel a bit wanted by some team anyway, you know, if you're not going to be making it with your county. So it wasn't the hardest decision in the world, but it definitely a painful one.
And did it feel like you retired back in July, or did it only really kick in the last couple of weeks?
No, it kicked in straight away because, you know, I thought the Kerry were going to go and win the All Ireland. But as I've kind of said to people since, I think it would have been harder to be knocking around, kind of not contributing, and the boys win, than to take a step back and watch the boys win as a supporter if you're not going to contribute anyway. Do you know what I mean? There, kind of, I just didn't think that if I wasn't going to contribute, leave someone else in there and stake their claim instead.
Yeah,
Paddy, does that Echo any reminder
I
for
did the
you?
exact same thing in 2020 on that point. Myself and Keane O'Sullivan, we were we were on our last legs, the pair of us, and this was the season that the All-Ireland final was the week before Christmas. So it was a long year. Like, you kind of started out the year. Desi had obviously come in, and when it gets to that stage of the season, James, you know, the squad is kind of, the team is picked at that point of the season. You know that you're pretty set in your first 15. There might be one or two places up for grabs in the squad and things like that. But I remember coming the last 2 or 3 weeks of my career, we played Cavan in the All-Ireland semi-final and Croke Park, and we bet them pretty comfortably, and I wasn't in the squad. And Keane was the same; he was injured. Rory O'Carroll was another guy. And those 2 weeks coming up to the All-Ireland final, having been in, we were fortunate enough over the past 10 years to be involved in them in a normal All-Ireland final in the summertime, and you're playing, and it's like, it's one of the greatest buzzes you'll get, the build up and things like that. Whereas that one, hand on heart, to be honest, I knew I wasn't. I was finished. I think the coaches knew, the players knew. So you're putting a brave face on it, and that's hard. You're trying to contribute in any way, but, like, you know, when you want to contribute on the pitch, that's what every player is there for. And my personality be kind of outgoing enough, and you're trying to nearly fake that at training and things like that. It's a hard place to be coming to the end. But you know, and everyone else knows. And like, oh, when you won the All-Ireland, they go, well, the lads did. I did feck all in that last one. So that point you were talking about there, James, where that is, I agree with you. You're nearly better off being out of it. Because it's a heavy burden, I have to say, coming to the end of any career. And we were fortunate, both of us, obviously, that we got to achieve kind of really successful moments in our career. But look, I think when you've put your heart and soul into it, which obviously, if you play at that level, if you got to that level, you have, finishing up it's hard when the writing's on the wall. You know, it's a tough place to be mentally, and that's, I do the exact same experience coming to the end. It's gas. I think a lot of players do, but there's very few that get a kind of ride off into the sunset type scenario. That's just the way sport is, I suppose, you know.
Yeah, if you can time it right. But I heard Kevin McMiniman talking when he retired this year.
Yeah.
And he goes, the sacrifices are worth it when you're getting the reward, you know. And literally, the reward for a player can be very small. It can be game time. It can be a little bit of responsibility. It can be very small. But if you're getting you don't feel like you're contributing at all or getting any reward, then the sacrifices are outrageous. For, you know, you're living neither side of life. Do you know what I mean? You're just stuck in the middle, and you're kind of not. You're not doing anything really. So it was the right decision for me. And I wanted to. I know you're probably the same with Bridges, but I wanted to give a good couple of years to the club where I was actually playing well.
Paddy gave his good years to the club.
Jimmy, no.
Paddy gave 2011 to the club.
Yeah, one and done.
That was worth it.
One's enough.
Yeah, exactly.
But I wanted to be some bit good anyway for the club, because the club scene is tight down here. You know, it's important. So it's important to us to raise a gallop in that. So I wanted to give a year to the lads, or 2 years to the lads, when I was still some bit able, you know, and I'm looking forward to that instead.
And how, James, sorry to prolong the pain, but how long did you feel like that in the Kerry dressing room? How long did you feel like, you know, as Paddy said there, I'm interested to hear about, you know, a role in a dressing room and the dynamics changing. I don't know if that happened to you, but how long did you feel like you were stuck in the middle, I suppose?
As nearly as long as I can remember now, because that's the freshest feeling I have. You know, the freshest feeling is the feeling you have. I can't remember the last time I put together a run of games where you feel really in the middle of it. And even if you're in and out, maybe, you know, 1 or 2 and out, your voice still carries in the dressing room, and you can still be that personality or be that person, you know. But if you're not playing at all and you're constantly running up and down the sideline doing rehab runs, or, you know, on the physio table, sure, you're just not there. So I'd say a couple of years really for me, you know, which is why it was a painful decision, but it wasn't the biggest change either, because I hadn't got the buzz of playing well for so long.
You had endured the torture for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Tommy, this is his first pod. He's not going to come back if you keep up with this tone. Like, it's not normally this morbid.
Hey, I did far worse to yourself and Andy last year, and you stayed with me. So we'll keep at it for another while. Another question.
Scrap it. I'm ringing Jack. I want to go back.
And come here, because people are going to be interested. Was like Kerry got a new management team this winter, as we all know. Was there no contact with Jack O'Connor, a man you would have worked with before back at the start of your career?
You know, I know Jack very well. He was managing us when I came onto the panel, and I always got on great with him. And I know that if I was right, I could have picked up the phone and said, "Look, that decision I made last year, I'm thinking about changing my mind. What do you think?" And I'm sure we could have come to something. But I told them I was retiring, and I said, "Look, if I change my mind, I'll ring the chairman." And I actually did give a go at getting into a very good nick for it, just to see could I give it one last. And you know what, my body just wasn't up to it, and that's just the way it is. I'll go back now to the club and I'll tailor my program, and I guarantee I mightn't see another injury. Do you know what I mean? Just the slight drop in intensity even might suit me. So yeah. No, I if I was right, I could have picked up the phone and we'd have a chat, but it just didn't feel right.
Yeah, Jesus, I knew it was bad, but I hadn't fully comprehended the extent of the injuries that you suffered through. Do you know? You were talking to us off air the other day, and I hope you don't mind me saying it, but about the double surgery back in 2015 on the shoulders, and that's not even the issue that forced you to retire. Like that was horrendous. That was after your footballer of the year season, wasn't it? Was it that winter?
Yeah. Well, I had a lot of shoulder problems. I had a lot of shoulder problems since I was about 20. So I was about 18 or 20, yeah. And I'd had a couple of surgeries, and then in 2015, I dislocated the shoulder I just got the surgery on against Kildare. I went around the goalie, and he made an unbelievable tackle and tipped the ball out of my hand, and I fell, and I just slid up and popped the shoulder out underneath the armpit, and it was a bad one. And Eddie Hartnett was our physio at the time, brilliant physio, and he put it back in on the spot. But it was so bad, it spasmed straight back out again. And he had to put it in the second time. So after that, they said, look, you need to get a different type of surgery. It's called a lateral J. So if anyone with shoulder issues is listening, it's basically where you take a bit of the bone out of the collarbone and you put it into the socket to make it bigger so that the ball in the socket of the shoulder doesn't slip out.
Oh, lovely.
So I got that on both shoulders now. 2 weeks apart, and
how does that work?
It was way heavier than I thought it was going to be. Because I had 5 surgeries altogether, so I had 3 done at that stage, and these were my last 2 then, and those 3 were lighter than these 2 lateral J operations are called. So I was literally just with 2 slings, just sitting watching TV or lying on my back, and it did me no favors. So that was just a tough spell.
God.
But like everyone has their thing. Like everyone has an ankle or a shoulder or a hip. You know, everyone has their thing. But I think I just made the wrong call there of getting the 2 surgeries within a couple of weeks. But it was greedy because I wanted to be back. I should have just taken a year out, or taken my time. Or
that never happens, though, doesn't it, that, James?
No. You're chasing.
The physio will sit down any injury with any player in my entire career. It's how long am I out for? 8 weeks. And they're like, okay, I'll be back in 6. And they're like, no, 8 weeks. And it's like, whatever the timeline is, you're shaving time off that because you want to be back as soon as possible. Because it's a finite career that you're getting. And particularly, I think the older you get, the more reckless you probably become. Because you're coming to the end. It's like, whatever I need to do, get me out in that pitch, and that's not best practice, obviously. And with hindsight, it's great. You can look back and say, "Geez, I shouldn't have done that." But every single player does it. Every single player, no matter whatever the time frame is. Well, I'm cutting that in half if I can, because I want to be back for the first round of the championship. There's always a game coming. There's always a game that you need to be back for.
It's the culture, though. It's the culture, I suppose, in anyone with a competitive nature, in any sport, really. I think it's funny what James was saying there. Chasing, you are always chasing, especially at the top level of intercounty football. You're chasing. Yeah.
But if you can just take a step back and look at the bigger picture for a couple of minutes, and you say, right, I'd way rather take my time, come back ready and strong and fit and whatever, than come back shy of that, not be as good, and put yourself under pressure in everything else, confidence wise and everything. Then, you know, it's the bigger picture. If you take it into account, there was people telling me to wait, and I was like, no. You know, I'll keep going, but stupid. But everyone's in the same boat, and even with young fellas now, I'd be saying to them, just take the time. You know, take the time, because there's no point in rushing. There's nothing to gain from it.
Did Keane come out and say that? Like, was it last season? Roy Keane was coming out saying that he used to be giving out about players who wouldn't play, calling them soft. And then with hindsight, he goes, maybe I should have done that.
Yeah, no, he regrets it. Yeah.
So again, hindsight, it's great. We're all experts then.
Now, in fairness, Roy did mind himself on a couple of going on international duty a few times. So, although I'm a Roy, I'm in the Roy corner.
You better hope he doesn't listen to the football pod.
I hope he does. So, well, James, what was I've always had this memory. This is it's not the 2013 goal. It's not the goal against Dublin that I want to talk about in a minute. But I happen to be sitting in an incredible angle for your goal in Croke Park against Galway. I was like right behind the corner where you burned the Galway defender and you buried it into the back of the net. What year was that? Was that 15? Was that 17?
14.
That was 14.
The year we won it, yeah.
You know, okay, your footballer of the year in 2014. Is that the year you played your best football of all your career? Did you ever get back to that level?
I'd say I got back there in 15. I got back there in 15 and felt great. Did a load of work on my body, just not my shoulders at that stage. And probably just after the All-Ireland, I felt very good. And we had a great winter then with the club, and I felt my best at that stage probably. But realistically, everyone probably has one or two of their peak years, and that was probably mine. Like, you know, this, it was good. Thank God we won it at that stage, because if we didn't, you know, I'd be sour now. But the boys took over after that, so no arguments.
We're gonna talk a little bit about the breakout year you had back in 2010 and coming into it. When did you first start to feel comfortable in the Kerry team? Do you remember that? I kind of want to leave this has got into a very dark and deep, and I know it is a sad time when you've retired from playing intercounty football, but Jesus, you lit up the championships for a couple of summers. I don't know if you know it, but on Off the Ball I was working on Off the Ball back in 2014. We refused to call you James O'Donoghue. You were known as James O'Donoghue because you broke out at the same time as James Rodriguez. Well, I suppose you're already an all-star by that stage, but yeah, it was that summer of there was a bit of magic going on all year long. When did you feel comfortable in a Kerry jersey, or did you always feel it when you got into the team?
No, I'd say, well, I suppose when I came into the Kerry team, realistically, it was the end of one of the best teams ever. You know, you had Donica, Galvin, Declan, Gooch, Donaghy, and
Darren.
Then you probably had Darren and Larry.
Was there for a year or two, wasn't he?
Yeah. So like you had 7 or 8 fellas there. So realistically, when I went in to start, I wasn't within, anywhere close to the team or even playing. So I suppose I had a nice kind of building period of doing nothing. You know, that like, then you start getting uncomfortable with doing nothing. You know, so like realistically, you start planning your future a bit. Whereas if you're kind of thrown in, you might have that phase of being uncomfortable. But I think that my uncomfortable phase was not being involved at all.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
And is that what?
Did you ever have that kind of that period?
I think I would say for 90% of players, that's the pathway, and the way we would have done with Dublin. With Jim would bring the guys in exactly like that. Conor O'Callaghan, Brian Howard, and these guys would come in, and there's probably 18 months where they're training away, they're in the environment. Nothing said to them like that you're not going to play or any of this type of thing, but it's just there's a learning curve, and you've got to build your body up to that level. There's 10% of guys who come in and they play straight away and they're just freaks. These are David Clifford, Jack McCaffrey, Kieran Kilkenny, guys that just come in off the bat and straight away they're going from 18, 19 years of age. They're starting in the first championship 15. The majority of normal people go through that phase where there's kind of 18 months or so. You learn the environment. Like you say, you're talking about personality. There's that as well. You kind of get comfortable the way things are done around here, because going from an underage team into a senior account, particularly in Dublin or Kerry, like it's high level stuff, like the analysis, the strength and conditioning, just the culture around the place is not something with all the best intentions you will have been exposed to in your underage career or even in your college or club career. So there is that bedding in period. And you're right, James, it's you do that for kind of maybe a year or 18 months and then you're going, right, well, I want to start playing now. I'm ready to play. And that's when you kind of have confidence in yourself and your ability. You start kind of annoying the manager then going, right, like, what's the story here? And that's what I would have seen a lot with our players coming through. The likes of Khan and Dean Rock would have been pretty similar as well around the panel. And then usually just a couple of training games, it just clicks, James, doesn't it? And you get the confidence and you go, there's usually a moment or two you go, okay, I'm actually good enough to be here. I belong here. And then the sky's the limit. It's up to you to push it on again, you know? Yeah,
especially like as an inside forward, if you can get a relationship with an experienced fella in the forward line, then they might see, he could slip in there and do something. Whereas, if you don't have that relationship or you don't have that trust from the other players, you're probably going to be up against it. But
who did you develop your first relationship with inside in the Kerry full forward line? Who did you target? Who did you say, I'm gonna make a connection with him?
No, it was forced upon me, in fairness, by Galvin. We didn't have a relationship really playing because we didn't play that much together, but even in training, he'd be so vocal and so intense about what you should do when he has the ball that he made you do the right thing. It was unreal. It was just something that I'd never come across before. And he'd managed us with the school, so I kind of knew the way he worked. But like the way he could get you to do the right thing, even if you were just about nearly going to do the wrong thing, but through his mentality, he'd switch you. It was just
is this talking on the field, or is it eyes, or what is it?
Yeah, eyes, facial expression, body language, a bit of everything. He was brilliant at fairness. But I remember when I went in, we do A forwards against B backs and B forwards against A backs. Probably most people do it. And I'd be marking Tom Sullivan or Mark O'Shea in their pomp at 18, 19 or whatever. And you would not get a kick of the ball, like a kick of it. And it really did. It was an eye-opener as to the level you have to get to. Or even like to learn little cheat ways of getting the ball, because you're not going to beat them for pace and you're not going to beat them for strength. So, you kind of learn like that way. But
what were you doing? So
it was pulling and dragging.
I remember, Jimmy, the first time I was brought in, Pillar was still the coach with Dublin. So I maybe debut under Pillar in 2008. I was a kid coming in. And like that, like we're playing training games out in St. David's in Artane, where Dublin used to train, and got a ball in a training game. Like I say, you don't get many of them. I was playing in the backs at this stage, so it was a complete shambles. I was coming out of the fence with the ball, and it's just kind of, I'll just take a solo here and look up and see where I'm going. And Kieran Whelan came over and tackled me, and I swear to God, lads, it was like the gloves were bigger than my head, like. And it's not even that close to me. I can get away here, and it's like, go, gadget arms come out, and this giant glove just wraps me up. And I'd say he punched me about 4 times, tackled me, closed fist. There was no subtlety in this tackle, and he obviously got the ball back off. I was kind of someone please blow the whistle, give me a free or something like. And I was just left in a heap on the ground, and Whelan's gone off, kicks a score or something, and that was a moment for me where it was like exactly what you're saying, like trying to Mark O'Shea when you're a teenager, like Jesus Christ. I was like, oh my God, like this is a different sport nearly to what you're playing in your minor and your schools football and stuff like that. So
how long did it take you to flip that, Paddy? When were you the one doing that to a young.
I never did that in tackles ever at any stage of my career. No, I got 13.
That's when is that physically now you're
physically, but also like I went to DCU, which was great because it was a big football culture in DCU, and you kind of got working on gym programs and stuff like that. But I think what James is saying is like there's a mental thing as well where you have confidence then and go, right, I'm ready to be here, and you don't panic on the ball, you take your time, and yeah, I think it's just you get to the level, you realize yourself that I'm at this level to play. And for me, that was probably 13 was one of my best years. And Jim had come in, and I played with Jim underage, under 21 and stuff. And he just said to me, I'd had like Giller had kind of binned me. And obviously the year in 2011 won the All-Ireland, came back, I didn't play much at 12. And Jim just came in and goes, right, I think you're good enough to play, I'll give you a go. And that was it. That was about as much as Jim was going to say to you. It wasn't bigging you up any more than that. He goes, I'm going to give you games at the start of the season and go and do it. And if you don't, fair enough, don't come annoying me. Like, and that was it. And you just get you get a run in the team and you start kicking a couple of scores. You played Cork in a league game, first league game in Croker, and I got man of the match. And that was it. I was like, Jesus, okay, I can actually do this. Because despite all the outward going confidence and things like that you might have, I think there's question marks in your head. You can be your own worst enemy at times, doubting yourself for younger players. And you need that moment where it clicks and it happens, and then you go, right, I'm ready to rock here now. And that's it. That was 5 years later for me from Wheelo punching the head off me in a training match.
But when you're playing those A or B games, James, I presume that's probably 09 or so. It's probably 10. Then you get your chance in the O'Byrne Cup.
10.
Yeah,
I wasn't in a 9.
Okay, so it was 10 when you first
10.
came in. So you got your run in the O'Byrne Cup. You were in kind of
McGrath
training.
Cup.
The McGrath Cup.
Respect that McGrath Cup.
Very, very important to get our provincial names right in the preseason competition. Very apologies to all the Munster people in there. I should have got the McGrath Cup right. That's my bias once more. It won't happen again until next week in the pod. Okay, so 10, you're breaking in. You get your shout in the McGrath Cup, couple of games, kick a couple of scores, and you can sign then to the A versus B game for the rest of that year. Like I'm looking here, the great Terrace Talk website, Wishy Fogarty's resource has your career stats in a snapshot here. From 2010 to 2019, 40 championship appearances, 11 100 in championship you scored. Like we were speaking about how difficult it is to score goals in championship football before. 11 goals in championship football is some going. Paddy, how many goals did you score in championship?
I wasn't interested in goals. They weren't for me. I was too busy running away from goal, creating space for someone else. Jesus. 11 goals is nice now. They're happy with that.
There's a few penalties in there now.
In 11,
couple against us.
We can come back to the penalties again. In 11, played three's a sub, scored 2 points. So you're getting your first kind of taste of the game then. I'd say you're starting to get impatient then around 2012. You play 6, you're starting most of them, 2 as a sub. You scored 111. Donegal beat Kerry that year. They go on and win the All-Ireland. 2013 rolls around. And this is kind of when people started to take notice of James Donoghue. You start against Tipperary in the first game, you score 1-3. Up against Waterford, you kick 2 points. Munster final then against Cork, you kick 3. And then we're into the All-Ireland semi-final against Kerry.
Dublin.
Against Dublin. Kerry against Dublin. Apologies.
You on the beer at the weekend, were you?
Paddy, you know this happens a bit. James, you're going to have to bear with me. 2013, right. You're a rookie in 2013 still. You've less than 10 championship games, 10 championship starts under your belt by that stage. Are you walking into Croke Park that day thinking, I'm going to shoot the lights out here, that I'm going to hit 2-3?
No.
Are you buzzing?
No.
2-3. It was an epic. Dublin obviously win it, but it was an epic that game. One of the great All-Ireland semi-finals.
Yeah, it was a great game. That was my first taste of Croke Park. Like, as in it rocking underneath your feet. It's just the greatest thing in the world. Like, there's nothing that can prepare you for that. There's no quarterfinal, no Munster final. The Munster final is good in fairness, but like realistically, it's nothing like Croke Park against Dublin, as everyone knows. But in that, I'm such a pity case. But in that Munster final, I tore my hamstring in grade 2.
Okay.
With about 20 minutes to go, but I stayed on and realistically made it worse. So I was out I was out for the quarterfinal, and I just came back then for the semi. If we played better in the quarterfinal, realistically, I probably wouldn't have been on for the semi-final. But we only played all right against Cavan, so they put me back in. And the only thing I can remember with that game is that Eamon Fitzmaurice comes up to me and Johnny Buckley before the game, and he said, "Right, one of you is taking a penalty. Figure it out between yourselves." And
Right, good preparation.
it was almost the first time to say no. He was like, "No, I want."
It was a good penalty. I mean,
Into the hill. Into the hill.
Into the hill, yeah. But you know, that small thing kind of, I was thinking about that. I didn't think about anything else. Even
Just
before the game, I was like, "Oh, we get a penalty, I'm taking the bloody thing." But it settled me a bit for some reason. And then it's just nervous energy. So I was just running around and managed to get a ball off Dunnick. And
So
once you get your first score, you're up and running.
What came first, the penalty or the goal from the Gooch pass?
Goal, I think, was it?
Gooch gave an unbelievable pass, like the quarterback pass, took the step back and then pinged the outside or the inside of the boot to Dunnick.
Did you see that?
Went like that.
Did you spot that in real time when he takes a solo, when he takes the 3 steps back, opens up the pocket of space, pops it, curls it into Dunnick? Did you see that, or were you timing your run? You probably didn't cop that at the time, did you?
No one's seen it. I swear to God, Jimmy, on that, we spent about, my God, 3 hours the following week looking at this clip. Like, our whole, like, we couldn't get out. I said we started training about 9 o'clock that night, like, going over that clip. I was like, how did this happen? And poor old Keane O'Sullivan, like, he stepped 1 step to the left or something. And this was the debate. It was like, what are you doing, Keane? He's like, what are you talking about? Like, literally, in a half a second, 1 step, and Gooch puts it through to the lads. And
but even the place,
magic stuff. Like.
Yeah, but the place the ball is caught there, the Dunnick catches it like on the top of the D. Even you see now, whenever the ball is caught there, it's a goal chance. Like. It's like the golden area of the field. Like, but I suppose these days there's so many bodies around there that you're going down the side and looping and kicking on the loop and all this. Like, there's not as much ball go straight down that zone. You know, but it's a goal chance as soon as the ball sticks there.
But you clearly had goal on your brain. Like, you don't score 11 goals in championship football, throw in a couple of penalties, but you don't score that amount of goals if you aren't thinking goal when you get the chance. You know, you can't receive that pass and think, I might go for a goal here. Like, when you're taking that ball on the burst off Dunnick on the shoulder, there's nowhere else that ball is going.
We'll finish now, yeah.
I suppose, but I think if someone was coming to tackle me, I think it would have been harder to kick a point. Honestly.
Kevin O'Brien, I think it was. I think it was Kevin O'Brien coming across.
To curl it over there, I'd have been blocked or something. Yeah, it was the only, because I was running the other way. I had to kick it back that way. Pure luck, really. Like it's the only place it could have gone because I'd have been blocked or I'd have kicked it wide going for a point. But it's just earlier in front of the goal. If you hit the target there, make the keeper make a save, you might get a rebound even. You know.
So
even like shot stopping is kind of isn't as big in football anymore, is it? You know, like you're looking at kickouts and high balls are probably rated higher than shot stopping these days.
How goalkeepers are rated or how they're picked by coaches.
Yeah.
The kicker, we touched on it so many times last year. You even seen it again at the weekend. Began is obviously, especially now with Stephen stepping away, Began and Morgan are probably the 2 main guys in that field. And you're right, it's become so important, whereas maybe 10 or 15 years ago, the kick out was just straight out the middle. And it was shot stopping really, which was the main thing. And it's nearly flipped full cycle now. So it's massive change.
14 rolls around. Did you feel like a different person in 2014? Because you were just on fire from the off.
I suppose I was settling in at that stage. Yeah, I felt. Do you know what happened? Was a lot of our team from the under-21s came through at the same time.
Okay.
Like in 13, Galvin retired, Tomas retired, and Gooch did the cruciate against Castlebar for the Crooks, and there was a bit of a kind of a, you know, this is for real now. We have to actually do it. You know, that team had to come through and do something. So I suppose we did take on a bit more responsibility, but just because it was kind of forced upon us, and it, you know, just kind of worked out in the end, really. But I suppose, yeah, once you have that run in the team and you settle, your personality kind of grows into it and things, and you're a lot more comfortable, definitely.
We will be doing a deep dive one of the days on the Kerry perspective on the All-Ireland semi-final doubleheader in 14. We will definitely be doing that. We will be going back into the 2013 All-Ireland semi-final at some stage against Dublin. There's plenty we can talk about there as well. Is there any, when you look back on the good days, is there any day that stands out, a particularly hot day down in Killarney, another day in Croker? Is there another day?
Grounds.
Say it one more time.
Gaelic grounds.
Gaelic grounds. Is there a day that stands out, James? Not even the All-Ireland final against Donegal in 2014 that you'll be looking back, smiling, saying that was the day.
I love to say when we beat Tyrone in 15, I thought we were on a winner. Because we won the semi-final and we'd won it the year before. We'd Gooch back, we'd Tommy Walsh back, we'd Galvin back, and we were in the final against G. And our confidence was up, and then we just never showed up. You know, in the final, we played so badly. But I suppose at that time we were definitely at our most comfortable. You know, but just didn't pan out like that.
That final was that final was spoiled, wasn't it? Like that was an absolute biblical day, rain. Like,
yeah,
and it was just like Croker is slippy. Like I think people can see that, but with rain like that, it wasn't far off unplayable. Like normally there's a bit of drizzle for 10 minutes and it stopped. This was sheets of rain for the entire 70 minutes. And it was funny. It was like, you guys were the champions. I've touched on it before. 15 was a massive year for us because we felt we duffed it, for want of a better word, in 14, losing to Donegal. So we were really, like that year, I think, in all my time with Dublin, there was just an edge to everyone for the whole season. It was like, even Jim as well, everyone in the camp, we were going on for that All-Ireland. And that was the perfect final for everyone. Like everyone wanted to see Kerry and Dublin play because we didn't play the year before. Obviously, we lost the semi-final to Donegal. And then you turn up on Croker and it's like a monsoon. So it wasn't a great game. Like 12-9 for those two teams with the players they had, it could have been 13 all over again. And we played the following year in the semi in 16. And there was another absolute, what was it, 20 points to unbelievable games. So that was just a shame that day. You know, look, we won it, so we didn't care in the end. But I think that would have been a special game as well. I know you guys felt you didn't perform, and we were similar enough, but I suppose that's why finals can go that way, you know.
They were kind of the days like 13 and 15 when the Dubs, like, you know, the 6 in a row starts in 2015, you know. There was maybe a chink in the armor there, James. I don't know how you felt then in 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 when you're watching it. Like, did you feel...
there's no doubt that the Dubs, there's no doubt that the boys were the best, but like, you'd always fancy yourselves to challenge them, you know, even just the confidence to go and rattle them was, you know.
You always felt like that?
I think we did, to be fair. But like in which was it was a 16 with the Peter Crowley.
It was 16, semi, yeah. Well, it's Kev's only made 2 or 3 tackles his whole career, and they've been big ones. And that was that was touch and go. It was a brave call not to give it. Like, was there a point in it at that stage? Was that it?
There was a point in it in the last minute.
This is the Peter Crowley. This is the Peter Crowley.
Yeah, Peter's coming through the middle on the 45. So if it's a free, it's nailed on. It's a score.
Like. I remember it was David Goff.
It was a foul.
I'm pretty convinced it was a foul.
Who was the ref?
It was David Goff, wasn't it?
Goff.
And he didn't give it. Jesus.
Will you go away?
Goff, man. I would go away. Jeez.
Yeah, he was running through the middle. I'd say he was top of the D, and we just brought on Sheehan. It was a 14-yard free for Sheehan. He didn't miss them, and in fairness, it was a savage hit, but it was just front on, and he went up then and kicked the point.
Dermot scores that point off the left. Outrageous. Is that score?
I'm not sure. No, it was one of them anyway. If it wasn't that one, it was the next one.
Yeah, that was another one. That was incredible. That kind of game gets overlooked. from 13, but that was
a savage game.
Oh,
I remember we pressed your kick out and we had a bit of luck.
4-4-4.
Yeah.
What year was that?
That's Rooney.
Was that a Donaghy special, was it? The basketball press. What year was that? Was the full press? What was that?
16.
That was 16. But he went, Cluxon went short, didn't he? And Gainey gave it to Darren for a goal, yeah. And then it's game on then. You know, once you have...
we were in front, if I recall, and then just before you do, what was it, 5 minutes before our time, you go, right, 4-4-4.
Yeah.
It's a ballsy call, it's brave. And they did it in 19 as well, and we knew you were going to do it. And for McCaffrey's goal.
Sorry to go back. That was the Connolly point. I've seen that Connolly point on loop 100 times, the one in 16. Yeah, I never realized the context of it. 74th minute, takes it off Mannion, opens up on the left. It's one of the most ridiculous scores.
I don't think I kicked the ball that far on my left foot. Never mind, kick it over the bar from there. Like that was him. Like
it was outrageous. I think that day he had 15 shots to the post or something outrageous. Honestly, if you check the stats, he just was on it.
Yeah,
he was. That was him. Different grade. Different grade.
He didn't know what he was going to be like, but when he look, I've always said it. Any talk to anyone, he's the best. Like when he talent wise, like there's no one like it. The Khan, Mannion, the Kenny, all these guys, Burno, Flinner, all of them. When Dermot was on it, like it was like forget about it.
I don't.
Some of those scores. That was it.
I don't want to put words in David Goff's mouth, but we've spoken to him before about 2016, and I'm fairly sure watching it back here that he is unsighted by Mick Fitzsimons just as McMiniman. Now it is 100% a free, and Goff is at the top of the D.
Tommy?
Yeah, where's the linesman there?
There's a point in it. It's the easy decision to give the leveler.
Yeah,
it would have been a harder decision to give if it was level already.
Yeah, I don't think he sees it. I don't think he sees
even if he cops out of the decision, you give the free.
Wow,
just draw it up.
Just draw it up. The man Kev.
No. Are you watching it there, Tommy?
I'm watching it here, lads. And Kevin McMiniman nails Peter Crowley in the face. And I remember chatting to Peter Crowley about it one night.
What do you mean, man, would make that call? Like? Jesus Christ, like.
No, but clearly you can see actually Fitzsimons and his heavily chiseled shoulders are actually blocking Goff's line of view.
He's just getting in the way as usual.
It's a bit like Colin Fennelly at the weekend with TJ Reid's free. That was a streak of genius, wasn't it? Just getting in the way of the keeper. Did you notice that when TJ is lining up that free? Fennelly just
we got it in. Was that it?
Pretty much, yeah.
Players in front of him.
As TJ goes to pick it up, Fennelly starts moving across, and they don't move him out of the way. The keeper sprints around Fennelly to try and get a better position, try and get a line of view. And if the keeper had stayed where he was, there's a good chance it would have hit him. But I'm not saying Mick Fitzsimons unsided the referee on purpose, but that
was planned. That was a set play.
Them's the breaks. They're the breaks.
Yeah.
They are the breaks. But yeah, James, I know you probably look back at times and say that injuries caught you and Jesus, you were plagued. But my God, an all-star in 13, all-star twice, footballer of the year, and all-Ireland medal. You had a great run of it.
Yeah. No, in fairness, definitely. But realistically, I'll always think, it could and should have been better. If I knew now about my body then, if I knew then what I know now about my body, I think I'd have got an extra couple of years out of it at a good level, which is just a disappointing thing. But so there's no point in looking back. I'm looking forward to a couple of years with Legion now and trying to win a bit of trophy or win a few trophies, and that's it. Yeah. But no, I'm delighted with my lot, and like being involved with Kerry, as Paddy knows, being involved in Dublin, it's a lifestyle for 10 or 12 years. It's you can never say you'd regret any of it because it shapes your life for that long. Even if it doesn't go too well, it still takes everything out of you.
I take it you live in the town in Clarny and you're from the town, you're of the town. I can tell how important the club is to you. As intense as it is being a Dublin footballer and being so well known around the country playing in that era, there must be a different type of intensity in being a Kerry footballer. Like you can never, at least the clubs
can be cutthroat place, all right.
At least in certain parts of Dublin.
O'Shea quote there, I think.
I'd say you could go to the south side, parts of the south side, and no, but they wouldn't know you, like. Whereas James,
I'm massive on the south side.
Killarney's probably Killarney, to be fair, is probably one of the lesser intense spots.
okay.
Like the smaller the town, the more intense in Kerry. Especially if they have a player involved, then it ramps up. But come the summer, there's nothing else on fellas' minds, only the All Ireland. Like it's unbelievable to be involved in, to be fair. But when it doesn't go your way, it's a long way back, So it's been a long way back, good few years of the trap.
Yeah.
The summer or the winter probably flies for the boys in Dublin when they're back. The winter flies, but geez, it's a long winter there when you're after getting bait in a tight game or a replay
Paddy has a famous quote around these parts: 9 months a monk, 3 months is the king of coppers, or the crown prince of coppers. Well, at least James, you're not going to have people asking you over the next couple of weeks and months, are you going to be back? All you can do is say, go listen to the exclusive interview on the Football Pod.
Tune in.
That's my lot. I've retired. So listen, James, congratulations.
Great to have you, Jimmy.
Congratulations. Best of luck on your new era as Paddy Andrews co-host on the Football Pod. Will we get talking a bit of football, lads?
Probably sure.
Yeah. We are very, very close to the real football kicking in. We've had pre-season for the last couple of weeks. We've had some lovely Sigerson action. We've had Galway winning the FBD League. We've had Kerry winning the McGrath Cup. I got that one right. Over in Leinster, Dublin came by Laois at the weekend. Paddy, I know you had an eye on that. And up in Ulster, Monaghan held off Donegal. Probably a poor enough affair, but there have been some good games in Ulster over the last couple of weeks. Some exciting games. Monaghan beating Armagh, a penalty shootout, and Tyrone getting hammered by Cavan. So, the appetite has been whetted over the last couple of weeks. I'd love to know, James, as one of your first tasks as a host on the Football Pod, what team you're looking forward to seeing over the next couple of weeks.
I have a couple, but
Okay.
I'll nail it down. First of all, I think Division 2 is very tight this year. And I think that if you break the whole thing down into your top four, you got your Dublin, Mayo, Tyrone, Kerry. There's probably 6 or 8 teams under that are going to give it, that could have a great year. And Derry, for me, are the ones that could seriously rattle Ulster. Because if you think back to their season last year, they got beat by Donegal by a point. By a McBurty wonder point.
Mm-hmm.
Donegal get beat by Tyrone, and Tyrone go on and win it. So the Derry boys are kind of thinking, are we that far off this year? And they're up in Division 2. Their first 2 fixtures are winnable. They have Down at home, they have Offaly, and then they have Cork at home, I think. If they could win the first 2, they're 4 points. They could be getting promoted to Division 1, and they're going into the Ulster Championship with their gander up. Mm-hmm. And I think that they're a coming team, and they're going to be hard to beat. Definitely in Ulster this year. I fancy them to have a good year.
Good answer, Paddy, isn't it?
Yeah, and they were not a Division 3 team.
No,
they were above that level last year, and you could see that. But like we said, and touching on it with Andy previously, and it's the same from our time as playing. There's always two or three teams who get momentum through the National League, and who's that going to be this year? And you look at Derry last year; it was one of the best games of the championship. Their game against Donegal and Ballybuffet, and then. But Derry don't get the shot off in the last minute. They have the ball for 2 or 3 minutes and don't get the shot off. They were very close.
They butchered a few goal chances too that day.
They had opportunities to win that game. And agree with James saying, like Donegal, if Murphy doesn't get sent off against Tyrone, could that swing in it? It's a completely different story in the season. But
yeah,
Derry will be very interesting to see. And you're looking at the top teams hasn't changed in the last decade. It's been Dublin and Kerry and Mayo. Tyrone have kind of flitted in and out of it. But
with
Donegal
Donegal.
never really delivered on their promise. That's we've touched on that. Declan Bonner got back for another year. I've said it, and even looking again at the weekend in the McKenna Cup final, I feel they've underachieved with that core group of players they have. They've got some generational players, and they've never seemed to deliver on it. And you're looking, who is the team that is going to take the step? Like Mayo did in 2012 with James Horan. They came out of nowhere. They were in that bracket where they might win a Connacht title and then they'd lose, and they didn't really beat any of the big teams. And James Horan comes in 2012 and propels Mayo into the top bracket. And they've been there since. They've had a decade there. Who is going to be the team? Or Galway? Is Pádraig Joyce and Divo going to get something out of Galway? They were very disappointed, and they threw away their Division 1 status last year, losing that game up on Clonus against Monaghan. They're a massive county with massive talent. Can they win? Can they steamroll Division 2, get momentum, and go in and take on Mayo in the Connacht Championship and push themselves into that bracket? Cork, all their under-8 success. New coach comes in, an under-21 All-Ireland winning coach, and you're thinking, geez, Tyrone had that impact last year with Logan and Dewar coming in, having won another 21 All-Ireland, and all of a sudden that core group of players comes through. Cork should be in that bracket. Like I say, they were there in the noughties competing. They won their All-Ireland in 2010. They're a massive county. Can they start challenging? And then the team I'm interested in, I just think the story, it's like something you get in a Hollywood story. Kildare.
Yeah.
The first game is in Newbridge against Kerry. Jacko's coming back. That caused the Kildare people were up in arms about how that scenario was handled. But they have brought in Glenn Ryan, Anthony Rainbow, Johnny Doyle, and Dermot Early. They're arguably their 4 greatest players. And last week, if that's not enough, in a little bit more stardust, and we bring in Galvin to go with it. If I am a young player in Kildare, if I am a Kildare supporter, a massive football county, the tradition there, they are football mad. There's got to be incredible excitement there. They're back in Division 1. That big game between them and Meath, who was going to be probably the second team in Leinster. Kildare won it convincingly down in Newbridge last year, and it was a big blow to Meath and Andy McAdee. But Kildare, to get into Division 1 with that management team, what are they going to do? And they host Kerry in the first game in Newbridge this weekend. What a game that's going to be. What an atmosphere that's going to be. Full houses again. It's like a perfect storm for them. From Division 1, I'm interested to see what they do, what the guys can bring to them. That's a young, energetic management team. What are the players going to do? Can they build on the kind of foundations that Jacko was put in? And then in Division 2, I agree. I think Derry are going to be strong. I'm excited to see them. But I'm like Galway, it's a big year for Joyce and Galway.
Yeah, I agree.
They are a massive county, massive tradition. Can they get in and start challenging in that top bracket? Because look, we can talk about Dublin and Kerry all night, and I'm sure we will over the next 3 or 4 months. They are going to be there. They're going to be in the mix. Tyrone are the All-Ireland champions. Give us a new team to take on these teams. And that's what we're going to see over the next 8 weeks in the National League, hopefully.
Yeah, Galway are definitely an interesting team this year. James, I'll be keen to get your take on Galway, but we might leave it a game or two into the league to get it. One of the interesting things I noticed about Galway in the FBD league is that they had Shane Walsh and his bleach blonde tips. They had a new fullback, Sean Fitz, and a mullet. And they also had Kieran Malloy and his ponytail coming in. So a couple of different hairstyles going on there. You know, I don't know whether they're hit and miss. James, I don't know what you're like for your championship cuts before games, but come here, Paul Galvin in Kerry. You mentioned it, or in Kildare. You mentioned it briefly earlier on, what he did for you as a young player and his coaching on the pitch and the influence he had. What did you think when you saw that? What can Paul Galvin bring? He's obviously had experience with Wexford. It didn't work out for a number of reasons. It was a tough time in Wexford at the time. They were competing with the hurlers. There was a bit of tension going on with Dave Fitzgerald. He was probably trying to change a culture at a time when Wexford football was probably quite low. It was a difficult couple of years. It was a tough time. It was pandemic time as well. So it was a difficult time to be an intercounty boss.
Hard gig. That's a hard gig at the best of times.
It is. What are you expecting now in Kildare with Paul Galvin?
I think Paul must be promised a lot of training time to go in there, you know, because he's not going to go in and just have a look. He's going to go in there hands-on. So, like, they must have promised him some good coaching time with those players. And if he gets it, the improvement that he can bring to a team is unreal, in my opinion. because what Kildare have had probably in the last couple of years, even since McGeeney, they've had the physicality, they've had the fitness, but they were just missing something up front to kind of unlock the door. They might score 15 or 16 points, but can they get the 15 or 16, to take them to the next level? Like Galvin has that in the locker to give them. And there's definitely enough forwards there to do the business for him. So, like, realistically, as Paddy says, the excitement up there is going to be unreal. So if he can go in and just tweak, what he's going to do, he's going to tweak their foot passing, because that's his thing. He's obsessed with foot passing. Inside the boot, 20 or 30 yard passes with vision, with a bit of class, the right run from the inside forward, not into out to in. He must have told me that 10,000 times when we were training. He didn't want to see you run out to the sideline. He wants to see the fake to the sideline, back in for the goal chance. Like, if he can get his hands stuck in properly to that Kildare team, they will be a force, I think. The only thing about them is they're in Division 1. And with a new management, if you get a bad start, how will it go down? I think they'll obviously get the backing in Kildare because they're legends and they have unbelievable history. But just in terms of the group, if they were in Division 2 and they got 4 or 5 wins on the bounce, you'd almost think, would it be more beneficial to them than losing a couple in Division 1?
Yeah, well, you're right. Like, it's Kildare Kerry. They're at home the first time around. Like, that is going to be a humdinger. That first game, it's going to be brilliant. Then
Newbridge or nowhere.
Newbridge or nowhere. There you go. Then they're going up to Donegal in round 2. There's a 2-week break. They're playing Tyrone, the All Ireland champions above and Oma, and then their 4th game is going to be against Dublin. Newbridge or nowhere once more, and then you've got
Newbridge.
Yeah, it's down for Newbridge in my GA schedule for 2022 in my Excel doc.
That'll be moved to Croke Park.
It probably will. Yeah,
I'll ring someone. Hold on, I'll ring someone now.
Then they've got Armagh. They've got Armagh, and then it's Kildare Monaghan in round 6, and round 7 is going to be Kildare against Mayo over in Castlebar. So, like, Division 1, that's where you need to be. Like, that's where you need to be
from Division 1, lads. Come on, give it to me.
Are we calling it right now?
Yeah, give me 2 teams that are getting wiped out.
I think I would, James. I'd like you to. No, I'm not going to.
I'm going to give.
I'll stick my neck in the pattern.
Controversial one.
Okay,
I'll give you a controversial one.
Go for it. Tyrone. Say it again, because I don't think we heard you. Oh, hold on. Say it again.
Afraid to say it.
I think Tyrone will be under pressure because of the way the season falls this year.
Hold on, under pressure,
and I think
relegated
last year.
No, this is relegation we're talking about here. No messing.
You think they're down? Yeah. Okay.
The only thing I'd say.
Well, I mean, I think it'll be very close. I think it's going to be very close. But realistically, last year, right, and the way Dooher operates, he brought Tyrone down to Kerry last year, and he did not care about that result.
Yeah.
He could have literally thrown out anyone. They came down the Friday. They went training. I think the game was on the Saturday. They trained again on the Saturday, and they went playing the match on Saturday. Like, I think Dooher is a different animal when it comes to the league. I don't think he takes as much interest in it. And I think that after the holiday, they might train through that league, sacrifice the results, and go at it for the championship. If they do, it could put them under pressure.
The first game is interesting. They play Monaghan at home in the first game, which, like, Monaghan, like, they won the McKenna Cup, but if I'm looking at last season's league, for Monaghan, we're lucky to stay in Division 1.
I know. Monaghan, though, they're so difficult to beat.
But that's what I was, in terms of on paper, you're looking at that. That's one of the easier games to kick off the National League with. We're playing Monaghan at home. If they're beaten there, that does put them under pressure. I agree with James. And you look at Monaghan there. It wasn't a great game on Saturday night.
No.
We were WhatsApping. It wasn't great to watch. January football's not great at the best of times. But the way that game panned out, with both teams were very, very, very cagey. But Monaghan were impressive. They went 9 points up against Donegal with 25 minutes to go. And I was thinking, these boys are ready to rock. They know they're coming into Division 1. They realised they had a scare last year. They almost beat Tyrone in the Ulster final, to be fair to them. So it could have turned out to be a brilliant year for them. But I feel Monaghan are going to be sharp in the National League. But the worry, the last 20 minutes, like, another 10 minutes in that game, Donegal are going to turn them over. And that's, I suppose, the power of Michael Murphy. Still, He just comes in, his presence. So I think that's an interesting one. Like I said, I'm going to keep an eye on Tyrone over the first couple of games. But in terms of if they're picking a game, that's not a bad one to start with. But like I say, I agree with James. If it doesn't go for them, then it's an uphill battle for them. Kildare are interesting. Like Meath came up to Division 1 2 years ago and they lost every game. And that is the challenge. That there's such a gulf you feel between the top teams and the next tier down. So Kildare, it's going to be interesting to see like the start they get. If Kerry come down and turn them over easily, and Kerry are moving sharp for this time of year, that puts Kildare right up against it as well. And to be fair, like Mayo have never really been. I know they won the National League for the first time in 2019. They won the league to beat Kerry in the final,
and that was a big win for them. Yeah.
But other than that,
they did. They flirted with relegation a lot. They did.
Mayo were not arsed with the National League for years. I remember playing them numerous times, and the guys were only coming back, and James Horan wasn't overly interested in it. They were back up from Division 2. Division 2 was good for them last year in terms of building that conference, bar obviously Killian getting injured down in Ennis against Clare. But that was, in terms of the period that team was in and the younger guys coming through, Division 2 was really good for them. But Mayo don't want to go back down to Division 2 again.
Yeah, I have a feeling
Mayo year there. I expect them to be a bit more focused in the National League.
I agree. I think we're going to see a decent showing from Mayo in this league campaign because we've got the back-to-back All-Ireland finals, but some of those players are still you can still say they're quite inexperienced, even though they got the back-to-back All-Ireland finals. There's quite a young group of players there. There's been a massive turnover. Killian O'Connor is going to get some game time in the league, which would be great to see. Jason Doherty's going to be back. They've had the great win last week of obviously the Lotto, and then obviously Oisin Mullen staying as well. So, they're going to be very interesting too. I think in Division 2, you're right, Derry, Offaly, going to be great to see what Tomas O'Shea and John Mahan get to do with those young lads in the 20s and getting a look at them. You've got Clare and Offaly in the first game is going to be a great game. Galway Meath in Pearse Stadium. There's Common Cork and the Hyde. In Division 3, there's so many new managers this year, lads. Like it's so interesting. In Division 3, you've got Limerick against Longford. So a new management team of Billy O'Loughlin and Longford. You've got Fermanagh, Kieran Donnelly as a first-time inter-county boss up against Antrim and Enda McGinley. It would be interesting to see, Paddy, how McGinley and his charges get on again. You've got Mickey Hart's Loud up against Laois and Billy Sheehan taking over Laois, who had a decent O'Byrne Cup campaign after their opening loss to Wexford. You've got Westmeath then against Wicklow and Colin Kelly down there in Wicklow, another new management team. Then in Division 4, we've got Carlow against London. You've got Leitrim against Cavan. That's a tough one, a tough opener for Andy Moore and Leitrim, but that'll be interesting. That's at home in Carrick and Shannon at 2:00 on Sunday.
You're looking at this, Tommy, and Cavan should not be in Division 4.
No.
That was a catastrophic season for them. Have won the Ulster Champions. The Ulster champions were relegated to Division 4.
Relegated by Wicklow in Navan. Yeah.
That shouldn't have happened. I would expect them to have a serious bounce back this year. You've seen, obviously, their McKenna Cup victory against Tyrone. I'm expecting, look, I'm hoping it goes well for Andy. Of course we are. But Cavan, if they're playing anywhere near their potential, and the kick in the backside they got last year, should be winning that division, and along with Tipperary as well.
Yeah, although Tip have lost Quinlivan, that's like one of the most talented footballers in the country is missing from Tipperary's forward line, so that's not going to be easy. And they lost a couple of other players, Tipperary, so that'll be tough. They're playing Waterford first day up, and they have Leitrim. It's Tip Leitrim, so not an easy opening campaign for Andy Moore and Leitrim. It is the provincial winners of 2020, Tipperary and Cavan in Ulster up in their first two games, and it's Wexford Sligo, Tony McEntee Sligo up against Wexford, and we might come back to Wexford in a few minutes because there's a couple of interesting appointments down there too. Quickly, lads, and we are going to keep this one quick. I want a player to watch in 2022. Paddy, I'll go to you first. If you give us a player to keep an eye on, someone you think is going to, doesn't have to be a complete bolter, someone you think is going to have a bit of a breakout this year, a bit of a say on the championship and the year ahead.
I'm going to go Maddie Tierney from Galway.
Okay.
Whether we'll see much of them on TV coverage over the next while, it's obviously going to be heavily focused on Division 1, but I think he's vice captain as well. If I'm not mistaken, I was impressed with him last year. I think he's an exceptional player. There were some moments in games where I was thinking that is ballsy. for
You're
a player of his age.
You're thinking
Kicking
Monaghan.
frees,
You're thinking Monaghan. He was clutch that
Yeah.
day, yeah.
Like I said, we're talking about teams taking the next step and pushing through. To do that, you need new players to stand up and bring them from, I wouldn't say the doldrums, like Division 2 was not the doldrums, but for Galway, you know, you're thinking of our age growing up lads and that team winning in 98, 2001, some iconic players. That's where you associate Galway being. And I think if they're going to get to where they want to get to, we're talking winning Division 2, maybe winning the Connacht Championship, being in the mix. I think Matty Tierney will be a massive, massive player, along with their established guys, the Comer and Walsh, these fellas. But
where are they playing? Will they talk in midfield?
I'd say
Or
midfield.
Or 11.
Possibly 11,
Midfield or
maybe,
11, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you get more, for a younger player, I feel out in the middle of the field is probably easier. If that makes sense.
Get more ball.
He's going to get more space. He's going to get more ball. If you're playing at 11, well, someone man marking you, that might be harder for younger players. But I think with Tierney, with his athleticism and his football ability and his physique, get him out in the middle of the pitch and try and get him on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be interested to see how he gets on. Yeah.
Who are you looking at, James?
I reckon that it's a big year for staying in Connacht, Ryan O'Donoghue from Mayo. Because if you think about his mentality going into this year, right, he's got Cillian O'Connor coming back. Mm-hmm. Is he thinking, oh no, Cillian's coming back, where am I? Or is he thinking, I have to keep Cillian out? Am I going to take my game on to another level? Or is he thinking, myself, Cillian, and Tommy Conroy can kind of have a bit of a threesome going there? So, like, if his mentality is right, he could have an unbelievable year. I'm just looking at what he did last year. Like, in the All-Ireland final, he got 8 points. 7 of them were frees, but to kick 8 points is still good going.
Oh, he was on it.
You know?
Yeah.
He had a big battle with Hampsey.
Yeah. No, he missed the penalty, and that could rock a fella. But realistically, we're hoping his mentality is on it. He got 5 points against Dublin in the semi-final. He got 1-3 in the Connacht final. And if you think about a young fella coming through, he's 23. He got those 3 games in Croke Park. He got the Connacht final in Croke Park last year. Yeah. I think every single game in Croke Park is massive. Unbelievable for development. Yeah. So he has taken the weight on his shoulders in those 3 big games in Croke Park. Fair enough, he lost one of them in the final, but he still showed big personality to play well in those games. I think that if he can have his mentality right, he can be a great player this year.
Well, if you look, he had a massive year with the club as well.
Yes.
I know they fell short in the end, but he was the main man dragging his club to the county final as well.
He's more than just a footballer as well. He's an unbelievable tackler. I
like his mentality, and we touched on it last year. You're looking at him; he's a little.
But he's a background in boxing, doesn't he? And a background in soccer as well.
Going around the pitch, tackling guys. If you have that in your locker as a forward, that nearly gets you into the game. Even if, like I say, your shooting might be a bit off, or you might be doing the obvious stuff, but that gets you into a game. And you're looking at Mayo, I would have always said we would have felt it in our games against them when we played in that great rivalry that it was hard for Mayo to rack up the biggest scores. That always felt for them to get 118 or 215 or 216. It was a massive task for them to get that on the biggest stage, and ultimately that's why they fell short in the games. It wasn't their backs false enough. Their backs did a fair decent job of shackling teams. That was my worry for them last year with Cillian getting injured. I know I said it against Dublin in the semi-final. Like, I didn't think they'd have the scoring power, and Dublin kind of collapsed in that second half, and Mayo ended up winning it with I think 15 or 16 points. Mm-hmm. But in the All-Ireland final, the old challenge, the old demons came back to me. Tyrone just kept them an arm's length. They weren't going to outscore that Tyrone team. Whereas now you look, the development in Conroy and Ryan O'Donoghue last year, and you bring Cillian back in, that is a serious full forward line. It was always kind of Andy and Cillian. There was the 2 lads. Now you've got 3 guys there. If Doherty comes back, it's a big ask, injuries and stuff like that. But you've those 3 in a full forward line.
But even if you're getting game time
for anyone, for any team.
I think as well, though, Paddy, and Andy would have said it quite a bit last year too, Tommy Conroy, he was crying out for Conroy to be a bit deeper at times as well. And when the game opened up against Dublin in that third quarter and laid on, Conroy driving from deep, like we saw how much he beefed up last year. That would suit him to play a bit deeper as well if the two lads are inside. James, I just wonder, when you look at Ryan O'Donoghue and you look at him winning an All-Star last year and he took on so much responsibility, do you see shades of yourself in ways or little ways where 13, 14, 15? Because, okay, you win the All-Ireland, but you had the All-Star before the All-Ireland, and then you had the injury with Gooch and Gooch coming back in, and I don't know whether you had questioned yourself about where you were going to face. Well, you obviously didn't. You were Footballer of the Year, winning the Footballer of the Year going in that year, but did you switch your mentality at all? Did you have to, or were you just on such a high that you knew you just had to maintain the levels you were hitting?
I'm actually not sure. I think that we were just kind of as a team on the way up. I think we had we were just growing together.
Okay.
And I think that Mayo, realistically, it could be on the same trajectory. I think that Mayo are going to be very dangerous. If you're thinking about, right, defensively, you put your two best backs on their two best forwards. But if there's a third fella who is going to cause you that much damage, you're going to be in trouble. That's why Dublin are so successful. Realistically, they have 6 scoring forwards at all times. And when we played Dublin in, I don't know, it was a 16, you were chasing the game against us. You might have been a couple of points down. They ended up with 8 forwards on. They had 2 forwards in midfield and the 2 wing backs. I forget who they were. I think they might have put Kilkenny wing back and someone else on the other side. They had 8 scoring forwards on the field. There's no team that can have that. Like, you need scoring forwards. I think that Mayo have an extra one this year.
Okay.
It's gonna seriously, that's gonna help them out. But we'll see. I think for them to come over the line in the All Ireland final, I think they have to take the lead. They have to go in at half time.
Yes.
4 up. They have to go in 4 up. They have to go in 3 or 4 up, and they have to give it that championship.
20 points.
Basically, there's a checklist. Score a penalty, don't score an own goal, and don't concede a goal after 13 seconds. That's probably up on the Mayo agenda next year if they get to the All-Ireland final. Was it 13 seconds Dean Rock's goal that year? Okay, it's very exciting, lads. A couple of quick fire questions to wrap on. If that's all right, James, can we keep you a little bit longer? I promised you in and around an hour and 10 minutes, but we've gone a little bit over. We have form for it here on the Football Pod. Okay, we're going to leave Cork for next week. We'll come back. I think we'll do a bit of a deep dive. I think Paddy's interested in hearing about Cork football from you and where they've been over the last while. Paddy, we touched briefly on Dublin's reset last week. You spoke about that. Let's leave another week and see what turns up on the first weekend against Armagh. Tom O'Connor's been in touch and he's asking about the trend of managers playing forwards as wing backs already this year. He spotted it a couple of times. Niall Scully wearing 7, Sean Bugler playing wing back, Amy Mackin playing number 7 for Armagh already this winter. Paddy, I was going to go to you first, but I know you've played in the backs. James O'Donoghue, have you ever once been handed a jersey lower than 13?
No.
You didn't even get an 11, no?
Not even an 11.
You are the ultimate forward. Yeah.
Andy Cole.
Could you imagine?
Like number 7 and number 5 run the game. The way it's gone at the moment, like the amount of ball they get in hand, looking up the field, probably with a bit of time and space as well. Like, if you can have your more creative players there, you're going to do some serious damage. And looking at all the top teams, even Keegan going forward from half back, you got Gavin White and Tom Sullivan from Kerry, all these fellas. Like, if you're creative enough from that position, you can make hay. So I'm not surprised at all to see forwards going to the backs. And especially if you're a team that kind of dominates possession, you're not going to be exposed as much. There's no reason not to do it.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting trend, right? Last season, everyone was excited about the National League and the way the championship went. Everyone seemed to be just playing more expansive football. Tyrone came in and it was kind of, I wouldn't say they ripped up the playbook for Mickey Hart's here, but you could see there was just kick passing, Armagh, attack from everywhere.
Yes.
The northern teams were traditionally kind of the more cagey affairs. Sorry, excuse me. Whereas football seemed to be like, we're moving away from the blanket defense and everyone's excited. We've got a lot of narrative and a lot of coverage through the media. And you're seeing that forward, attacking players in the half back line, driving forward. That's what everyone loves to see. It was brilliant to watch. I'm interested to see, does that trend carry on in this season's National League? It's back to a normal traditional season. What I've seen to date, and I don't know if the McKenna Cup final is just burned into my head from Saturday night. Our team's going back. Our team's going back to, let's get set up an engagement. Let's get out to the 65 and get 15 guys behind the ball. Like that worked for Monaghan on Saturday night. Donegal, there was nothing new from Donegal. I was thinking, are you still going down that road? Like that, I thought we'd seen the back of that, and that football had a shelf life. But we'll see, I suppose, over the first couple of rounds of the National League, is that expansive style of play still going to be there? It's hard in these conditions. Or are we going to see all-out attack from the half-back line, like you say, with forward driving? That's what we want to see, but time will tell over the first 2 or 3 weeks of the season.
100%.
I think it's going to go. It's going to go that way, because even if you look at the soccer scene, and you have your Jose Mourinho park the bus kind of mentality, like it's gone. There's ways you can pick around it. If you get the right tactics, you can pick around it. I think that those days of getting bodies behind the ball, they're not going to last, because fellas can chip points from angles. It's just not working. I don't think that style is not winning the All Ireland for the next couple of years.
No chance.
Okay. That is going to be one we're keeping an eye on over the next couple of weeks. And another quick one. Wexford hurling, Dara Egan has pulled a bit of a coup here. He's got Billy Walsh working in the background in the Wexford hurling team, and now he's got Gordon Darcy involved as well. That's very interesting. But what I would like to know is, Paddy, I don't know how many backroom members have been involved in your time in Dublin. I'm sure there's been quite a few, but I would like the two of you to pick out someone from your time playing intercounty football and tell us about a character or one of your favorite backroom team members that you would have had. It can be a kit man, it can be a nutritionist.
What are you looking for here now, Tommy? You're looking for like a brilliant coach in the background, or a more character, like a personality?
I think personality is what we're looking for. We can come back to the brilliant, the brilliant coaches again, and these people can be brilliant coaches and characters. It can be whatever way you want it to be. I know I'm throwing it at you on the hop here, but there must be somebody who stands out.
I'd say one of the most important roles of the team, and we a good friend of the pod, Barry Solon, came on last year. In any team, your physios and your doctor need to be sound. They're nearly like the agony ants in the dressing room. Everyone has to go in with getting strapped and whatever. You're getting your robes, you're getting ready for training. There's usually 2 physios there, and there's 20 lads there. That's where the crack happens. Like, so you need sound lads and a bit of energy there, and they're guys you can have a bit of a laugh with. Because when it comes to the coach is the coach. You're very formal. It's like any conversations you're there, you're usually like talking about tactics, or you're trying to get a game. So they're harder, and selectors are the same. Maybe a bit more laid back, but I think medical teams are usually, they play a massive role in the environment. And 2 guys I'd say from my time done. One, a guy called John Courtney, the Colonel as he's known. You might see him on Twitter the odd time.
Yeah, he's doing 100 days of walking or something like that. Yeah,
he's getting the mileage up. He's actually a Cork man, living in Kildare, and he was with the Dubs. He was in the army.
He's a big background in football, John. He's a big background.
Oh, massively so. So. Yeah, very, very. He's been around for years. A brilliant insight into the game, but just a great, like you're talking about energy and characters. Like the lads all love him. With another guy, Frankie Roebuck is his name, one of the stats guys. Again, just characters around the place.
And what was it about John?
You could be, no matter how bad you were, you could be having an absolute catastrophe of a game. Colonel would be over straight away. First man. It was like seeing your mother after the game. It's like you're flying it. You're electric.
And would he be watching it? Would he know you were terrible?
He's watching it. And like he knows the game. So he knows this fella's talking about was Arsenal. I was useless. But just that was his personality, his energy.
Yes.
And no matter what, you'd go away from that conversation for a minute or whatever, and you'd be going, it was actually all right out there.
Yeah.
That was it. Like just a character around the lads. Just a massive personality, a brilliant guy, and the players loved him, and I had massive time for him. But someone like that, every team, every environment needs people like that have a positive spin on things. And like Jimmy said, just lift the energy of the place. Personality, character, because it's heavy going a lot of the time.
Good answer. The Colonel, John Courtney. James, who are you thinking?
We had a lot, to be fair. We had some good characters, but one I'm thinking of is Jorkeen, the physio. You might know him. He's
Okay,
brilliant physio, but he was just a mentality monster like that. You could be having the worst season of all time, and he's there digging the elbow into your glute. And he's saying, you're brilliant. And you're getting a psychology session while you're on the table. It's like a 2-in-1. He was actually doing psychology before there were sports psychologists. But I always used to love going to him because you come out feeling brilliant.
Magic.
We had a fella called Niall O'Callaghan as well. He's a Crokes legend, I suppose. He was kind of kit man and things like that.
Yeah.
But he was such a laugh. Like if you walked into the dressing room, you might have your head down or something. He'd call you out and make a fool of you in front of everyone and get a big laugh out of everyone. No matter what the mood in the camp was, he'd lift it. You know, you need those fellas because
100%.
sometimes the players just get caught up in whatever's happening, but you need a fella who can take a step back and just take the mick. I think he was brilliant at that, to be fair.
Great stuff, lads. Great. I'm sure there's loads more. And we'll try and get some more of those stories out over the next couple of weeks. We've a very exciting season ahead here on the Football Pod. To everyone listening at home, I think I haven't got assigned into James's contract, but James, I had form last year for adding little bits and pieces in as the year went on.
Changes every week. It's a rolling contract.
It's a rolling contract. 100%. I think we might do is we might do an Ask Me Anything for James O'Donoghue, if that's okay, James. You know, we can edit them a little bit.
Don't commit to that.
What we might do is we will
add on a zero.
I think there's a break week coming up. There's a break week coming up in 2 weeks. So I'm going to put up an Instagram story on @footballpod_GAA, and you can start getting your questions in for James. We're going to put the best ones to him. So, do you know, James, you're going to have to be ready to go when we say the Bomber O'Donoghue.
Oh.
No.
No?
Oh, okay, we'll leave it. Okay. Because Clifford and Gooch is coming up as well. So you're going to have to think about that too. So, James, brilliant to have you on board. It's fantastic. Really exciting. Delighted to have you.
Delighted to be here.
Paddy,
Thanks
great to be
having me.
back.
Great to be back. That's good. Andy who?
Do you know what the best thing is, Paddy? We can now align your trips down the country for golf with a recording in Killarney. It's
I do
perfect.
every second weekend in
sort it
Killarney,
out.
Jimmy. You sort it out, right?
Brilliant
No
stuff.
matter
That
what
is
context down here.
episode 1 of season 2 of the Football Pod. At this time, it's with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue. I'm Tommy Rooney. Thanks very much for listening in. Hit subscribe, share the pod, tell your friends, and we'll see you back here next week. Take care.